V_AFC, and we are back with another preview, guys. Everton, they are kind of the team that's coming up. They are a game in hand. It's a very important game in terms of kind of some of the narrative, in terms of title races, if you want to go look at it, but also a chance to maybe redeem ourselves in terms of how we have performed against these type of physical mid blocks. We know what we're going to face, a 4-5-1. We know the type of play that we're going to face. Let's see if we've been able to kind of fix some of our chances between the lines, because we have looked predictable at times. But first things first, I'm going to ask how the boys are doing. Chris, how you doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Obviously, this is our game in hand. Yeah, it is important to win this. It is important to create that big gap, or not big, but 5 points is a decent gap. It's better than two to Man City. So yeah, I'm feeling good going into the game. Never really nervous or anything, but yeah, it's important that we win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think when you have a look at it, people are going to be really interested to see how we deal with that kind of mid block that we're going to find. And, I'll go to Curran first, mate. Like, unchanged lineup. What are your thoughts initially? Hey, Levy, how you doing? Good to see you, mate. But how are you thinking that we're going to face this kind of mid block where it's clearly a physical midfield? It's actually a slow front line. Without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, it's a huge miss, and I'll probably do that as another topic. But like, how do you see us being able to create chances against a midfield that we know is going to be packing the center? It's going to be aggressive to their markers, and their fullbacks are going to be doubled up on our wingers. So we know what we're going to face. How do you think that we face it with kind of Trossard and Martinelli as the only real change in terms of who we face for Everton?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how we decide to go through our final third progression. I think that will be the main thing. Will we decide to go out to in runners and get the balls in behind the fullbacks that are doubling up in wide areas, or are we going to try and do the overlaps, a Ben White or a Zinchenko or even a Xhaka overlapping and trying to combine with our fullbacks? Because at Goodison Park we weren't doing that enough. We were leaving our wingers to isolate, and we weren't giving them options to really combine with anyone, asking them to take on 2v1 battles constantly. So it'll be interesting to see how Mikel, mitigates that and tries to get the actual performance out of that front line moving a bit differently. And I think Trossard gives you a mover, someone that isn't going to stay central consistently. That will give you not only a box threat, but also a threat to combine with people in wide areas. So it will be interesting to see. I just hope that we don't try to, spam through balls into nowhere. I just think that there could be, Jorginho has been very good at it, the whole, lifted balls over and switches and things like this. I just hope we don't try to go over the top with it. I do hope that from deeper we try to switch play out to the weak side a lot more. But in the final third, I think we're going to see that it's going to be two banks of 4 and 5, and I don't want us to try and just try to find that little clip ball consistently. I want us to try and combine and really work some numerical advantages, especially in wide areas. So interested, very not worried, but just a little bit concerned about the transition threat and how they're going to try and get the ball out of their first third in transition and try to isolate Jorginho in those moments. So we'll see how we deal with that. But we are at home, and I feel like that will be a bit of a lift, I think, emotionally, and just getting the crowd with you on that one. So
speaking of transitions, it kind of leads me to my next question. I'll ask Chris. Look, we were talking off air about what you thought, and I definitely said I'm worried about this lineup. I think as though it'll be cagey. I don't think that we're going to come off strong off the bat. And the one benefit, though, that we have is no Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and that has to not be overlooked in terms of the facet of this game. So despite them having a really tight low block, probably making things difficult for us vertically. Curran had mentioned kind of the difficulties with Jorginho potentially lifting the ball over. I've talked about it in the past with the Everton preview as well as the review last time. If you can't go through them, you can't go around them, you got to go over them. We do have to test quick switches out as well as lofted balls over the top. But one thing that is going to be a factor in this game is the fact that they themselves won't be able to transition as fluidly without a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who is definitely their best physical outlet to go up top. Neil Maupay is really a non-factor in this regard. He's going to flit in between the lines. It's going to have to be them playing through our press for them to get out, really, which is something that they're going to struggle with. And so for you, how do you think that the Dominic Calvert-Lewin factor is going to impact their ability to maybe worry us in transition? Because I think that their main threat is going to be coming through set pieces at this point, because they're going to lack somebody physically up top to really hold the ball up to allow them to get into play. Are you worried about transitions with Jorginho in this team and against this kind of Everton lineup, or is it kind of a non-factor, like how I think?
I think transitions both way will be big. We saw versus Liverpool, for example, they did well in moments to get like corners, try to apply pressure, but Liverpool undone all their good work in the first 30 minutes by just a goal, quick transition, and you force them to open up the game. So I think transitions both way, especially for us, because when they're settled in their block, may be a bit harder for us to create. One, because their midfielders probably cover more ground than any midfield in the league. They've got a very athletic midfield, very strong indoors. Not the best technically, but three very good ball carriers as well. So in transition, they will hold big threats. It's about how we manage the spaces next to Jorginho, really, because the last two games, he has been our most prominent player on the ball, most touches, most passes of any of our players. So he will, again, today have the most have the most passes, but someone like Xhaka, as we said, that he hasn't really stepped up the pitch and made those runs into the box like he made earlier in the season, like versus Leicester, where he got a lot of shots on target. He hasn't really done that as much. So when he sits deep, how will we create overloads to their centre backs? Because Michael Keane, for example, hasn't played football since
August.
Yeah, he hasn't played football since the Brentford game. Since Dyche has been back, he's been on the bench, but he hasn't come on the pitch. So I think he isn't fresh of how he does. Tarkovsky has made fouls in 5 of his last 6, so he will be trying to hit Trossard in the back, trying to step up. So there will be openings, but yeah, transitions will be very important. I think both ways, not just defensively with Jorginho and Zinchenko. I think offensively, we can definitely do something in transitions.
Well, I think the big thing is going to be focusing on the right-hand side, I'll be honest with you. With Michael Keane and Tarkovsky, they've got a partnership that's back from their Burnley days with the same coach that basically made them famous for it. So I don't think that even despite not playing in August, there's going to be obvious individual rust, but that partnership is solid gold. Like, they know how to do it and where each other's faults are going to be. They know each other's instincts. So I think it's going to be a very smart partnership for what they need to do. The one hope is that really what you're going to have to do is have a look at what Trossard is going to be able to do to pull defenders out. This is part of the reason why I'm really fearful in terms of Martinelli being stuck out wide in isolation, because the space is going to be in behind where you move the center backs. And if Trossard's going to drop super deep, just like he did during Leicester in terms of helping us get out at the moment, their center backs are going to have to be asked the decision. Do they follow Trossard deep in the mid block? Or do they stay and keep their line? And that's going to be the case. Who can they pick up in terms of the movement in between the lines? That's going to be key. And that's why being super vertical is going to be the key to this game. And that's why Ben White is going to be super important. I'm not sure if I see the same thrust on the left. And that's something that we're going to maybe have to address kind of in the second half. But I'll go to Curran for kind of the next little part of the question. So, Curran, mate, we've got basically these two dynamics right now. Are you worried at all on set pieces? Because Michael Keane, even though Dominic Calvert-Lewin's out, they kind of have that other center back to really kill us in the set pieces, which is something that they were doing quite a bit. Are you confident in us being able to defend set pieces a lot more with Gabriel's form kind of returning quite a bit in the last few matches? But I mean, that's kind of facetious. He's been excellent since November, but particularly the last couple of matches, especially against Leicester, he was a dynamo. Do you see Gabriel being super important, or ability to defend kind of the one area that really killed us last time?
I think worried is the wrong way to put it. I think obviously it's a point of concern and that's the major output of attacking threat is going to be from set pieces. So I think that's the wrong way to say it, but I think it's something we have to take account of and be aware of. Obviously with Gabriel, he is our leader in terms of organization of the line, in terms of being that aerial monster in the defensive box. And actually in both boxes, but we're talking specifically defensive here. So I really feel that if you go back and look at, as you mentioned, the last couple of matches, he's really stepped up. And I just feel like, especially with the threat that, as you mentioned, with Keane, Tarkovsky, even Onana, they have some really big boys in that lineup. So we're going to have to be a bit more aware. I mean, if you remember the Everton game, it was Jorginho and Odegaard losing the marker at the back post. I think we have to be a bit more aware of where the threat will be coming from and organize our line accordingly. I think we were a bit too naive with how we organized our line in that corner situation, leaving maybe two of our smallest and more weaker players 2-on-1 versus let's just say a big person. So I think we have to really organize our line well, and if we can do that properly, I see no problems. But we have to be aware, we have to be focused, and we have to be on point with these.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, I'll go to you kind of for the next question. In terms of off the bench, because I think the bench depth is going to be super important for us. We were actually just having a conversation in terms of Emile Smith-Rowe, Fabio Vieira, ironically. Everybody knows my opinion, but I think it's even worse against this physical midfield. I love both players, but they both have a particular function. They both work well in particular game states, and they both have their uses. Fabio Vieira would be excellent for a half-space cross and shot from distance. Emile Smith-Rowe will add central running power and dynamic overloads wide to push some of our biggest threats inside. Both are things that we could use against Everton. Which do you lean towards being more important, particularly with kind of Michael Keane in the back there, which I think is super important, that despite Fabio Vieira's excellent half-space crossing, do we have a target man that's consistently able to meet those crosses? I'm not sure. But for you, who's the first sub? If what we're predicting is kind of a cagey match to begin with, who's the first sub for you to kind of make that change and add a little bit more dynamism?
Definitely Smith-Rowe is probably our most dynamic player in the middle of the pitch in the whole team. Assuming that there won't be much space in behind because they will be deep. The space will be between the lines, like between the centre backs and the DM. If you can create space in the half space through movement, I don't really see how we will consistently do that with the players that were starting. The rotations haven't been as good as they were earlier on in the season. Smith-Rowe is someone who really adds to that, very comfortable wide, and just a ball carrier in the midfield, get some fouls on the edge of the box, some free kicks, get players worried about yellow cards and stuff like that. It's very important to have someone who can just go past 2-3 man and score by himself. When the game is tight, and if it is cagey like we think it will be, you will need someone not just to play a great cross into the box, because, as you said, who will meet that cross? Like a Trossard header, I don't think is as good percentage chance to create as a Smith-Rowe cutback. That's what. So if we are creating consistent chances, I would much rather it be a Smith-Rowe cutback or a Saka cutback than a Saka header or Trossard header. Maybe Martinelli header's a different conversation, but again, headers will be hard to come by versus their defense. Like, they are a big defense. Mikalenko, Tarkovsky, and Michael Keane are bigger than all of our attackers. Maybe Coleman is the only size advantage we have, but will Martinelli be there at the back post in the box consistently? No. So definitely Smith-Rowe, I think. Just to have someone who's a great ball carrier, probably definitely better than Vieira defensively and physically, and much more comfortable going both ways.
Yeah, and look, I mean, everybody on the channel who knows me knows that this was my solution to this problem in terms of pulling Xhaka back, having Kieran Tierney high and wide, and, Trossard can operate on the inside, float in between, and I have no problem with Martinelli shifting into center forward pieces. We know he improves himself in central areas, and that's what we've seen. I do think if you're going to pull this kind of move in order to have basically Kieran Tierney be the high and wide option, you demand Emile Smith-Rowe or the right central midfielder to be the overlap, because by nature, if you're going to have one fullback push high and wide, then the other one's going to be a little bit more inverted, i.e. Ben White, which is no problem. We need that with Jorginho, but it does put a lot more pressure kind of on the inside right central midfielder to provide that dynamic overlap to push Saka inside if your right back's going to be a little bit more inverted. So in order to do this, it pushes a lot more pressure on Emil Smith Rowe. This is something that I would have done. Maybe injuries are different. I know Mikel doesn't change, but I do think that this would have given us a lot more freedom between the lines because it's something that we've lacked. But let's see how we fare. I do think it's going to be a cagey fixture. I'll go to you first, current mate, for your key battles, but also what do you think is going to be kind of the predictions as well? So we'll mix the two together.
I'm going to go for Saka versus Mikalenko. I think that's going to be the key battle. I think that's where the goal will come from, in my opinion. I'm just going to do my prediction now. I'm going to think it's 2-0 to us. I do think we can score a couple of goals, Trossard and Saka, but that side is going to be so intriguing because we have Odegaard and Saka on that side. Are they going to be able to find the combination play to allow Saka to really be that leader in inside channels? So if we could do that and we can really isolate Mikalenko a bit more, get him into areas where he doesn't want to be in, and really maybe even get him into foul trouble, as Chris was talking about off air with us, about how we can really try and just push him and try to get him into a situation where he doesn't want to be in. I think that's going to be the key battle for me. Saka, Trossard, and 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, the right-hand side of Everton is slightly better at a defensive point of view than the left-hand side, and that's why Saka becomes a really important key point. And the fast switching is something that we've talked about. We move the ball far too slowly against Everton, and we know that is part of my fear. Part of moving the ball slow is understanding where those kind of 1v1 situations are going to happen. Where's your superiority? And part of the issue is that Arsenal have been far too predictable in attack, and it's led to reduced chances between the lines. And so these are part of the things that I think we're going to have to fix. I do think, like, when you start talking about who would be better, Jorginho is the main progressor. While he's in this team, he's the progressor. So this fact that, whether it's Xhaka or Zinchenko, though the second kind of receiver is not majorly important for progression when Jorginho is the one on the ball. He is far more touch dominant and more vertical, in terms of not just so much between the lines. I think Partey is very vertical between the lines. In fact, too vertical, some might argue. Jorginho plays a little bit more of a slower tempo kind of game in terms of where he likes to pull the opposition line. He does have, actually, in my opinion, that floated ball over the top. He does have that. It's a little bit more lofted with a little bit backspin, but we won't see that with how tight that block is going to be or how we expect it to be. So from this point of view, I think with Zinchenko, you've already got somebody next to him in Jorginho that offers that progression. You again start to ask, are you putting too many players in the same zone that step on each other's toes? What do we need in that left-hand side of the pitch right now? We need the thrust. There's no point in having Martinelli high and wide whipping crosses in for a front line that lack the height to make use of it. So for me, the crux is basically moving Martinelli inside to make use of the runs in between their center back, making sure Saka is inside, making use of kind of the spaces that you would pull a Michael Keane, a Tarkowski out. The space isn't going to be wide. We know that's where it's going to be doubled up on. The space is going to be in those interior lanes in the front five. That's where the space is going to be. And that's why you always love to see an Emil Smith Rowe running onto those cutback chances at the top of the D. I think these are the type of chances that you're going to see us create in this match if we can. Maybe quick switches out to Saka. If Saka does something brilliant, as he always does, we could do it. But Chris, I'll go to you. Last minute thoughts in terms of the key tactical battles, and then I'll sign off with mine. And also your predictions.
Well, yeah, I think the right hand side, not even just 1v1, but we all need to try and get Saka 1v1 a lot more. We've seen them double up with McNeil and Iwobi doing very good work to drop back and double up on Saka on the other side. Onana, Doucouré doubling up on Martinelli. So it's going to have to be very diligent. So I think Odegaard, White, Saka versus McNeil, Iwobi and Mikalenko is a big battle. How will we manage the overloads? How will we track back in transition? Because a lot of their chances, if I look back on the last game, came from our right-hand side being very poor. Ben White was in a bad patch of form then and has been better in his last two games. But will he be as consistent as he has been? And will we be much more cutthroat than we have been recently? Because, again, this is a team probably more dangerous on the counter than any other team we faced in the past couple games, apart from maybe City. But so I think, again, Odegaard, Iwobi is my big battle. because defensively we'll have a lot of work to do. Offensively, we'll see if he can get Saka 1v1, play the passes earlier, because Saka 1v1 versus any left back, I don't really worry. So if he's going to sit off him and not do the overlap, he needs to play quick passes and even take shots, because he does get shots versus Everton this season, last season. He gets a lot of those cutbacks and he needs to finish them this time, because he missed versus Villa and he missed versus Everton. So hopefully he scores this time. So yeah, Erdogan, and 2-0 for me.
Yeah, no, look, I think right now people are going to wrongly criticize Granit Xhaka. I'm calling it right now. He's going to have a poor game because the left-hand side is going to be really predictable and static. And what's going to happen is our right-hand side is going to be dynamic. And you're going to see Ben White really providing the overlap, I think. I do think he does it. I think he's been better in recent games, Ben. I think he's got some of his burst back. For some reasons, I felt, not that he's slow, but in recent games, I felt he hasn't had that same boom in terms of his overlaps. I think it's back. And I do think that the right-hand side kind of opens it up for us. I think Jorginho is going to be important. I can see him slipping balls into Saka kind of in that zone 14 and him being free for a pop shot or something, as well as Ben providing an overlap. I worry on the left. I think we're going to see a stagnation. And I do think that we're going to struggle to score kind of in the first 60 to 65 minutes, and then we're going to see a break. And I do think it's going to be a 2-0. I think Saka is going to be the one to maybe break the deadlock. And I do think that we might be in charge of a Gabriel header. Ironically, we have a lot of set piece worries from our end, but I do think Gabriel's due a header. He's had a lot of really good chances, but ironically failed to really be clinical in those positions in recent games. And he stocked up quite a bit of the supposed XG in quotation. So he should be doing really well. He should get a goal soon, whether it's now or Fulham. I can just see a Gabriel headed goal happening very, very soon. But yeah, no, I think ultimately it'll be 2-0. It'll be a tough, cagey game. Hope the boys can get through it. I'm not worried in a sense of being conceded on, because I just think without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Everton will struggle to get out. So it's just going to be a patient game. I urge patience with the fans. If it's not 3-0 inside 5 minutes, don't yell, don't scream, don't say it's a bad performance. It's going to be nitty. It's going to be gritty. And we're going to be back with you guys with a review kind of really soon, because we've got games coming up very, very quick. So whether that's Thursday or Friday, we'll let you guys know. If everybody, before you guys head out, if you can smack a like on the video, I know it really helps out the channel. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. You hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. And all the boys' socials are down below. So at GeorgeV_AFC, or Chris for at CK Football FTBL, and at Curran BoP. But of course, we are Ball Over Passion here on YouTube, or at BoP Footy on the Twitter. So guys, thank you so much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that little preview in terms of what we can do. Hope the boys can pull well. We've got a lot of 2-0s kind of on the panel over here. So hopefully that is something that we get to see in action. We'll catch you guys on the next one, though. Peace, everybody, and thanks for watching.